Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast, a podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is a legend who is not a podiatrist. It is Olivia Brown. Olivia is a sports therapist, scar practitioner, and stretching enthusiast based in Lincolnshire in the UK. And Olivia was at this year's Foot and Ankle Show. That's sort of how we almost crossed paths, but didn't actually meet in person. You saw me talk, but we didn't really connect until I got back home through LinkedIn.
Yeah, so after I saw your talk, everyone was in mass going towards you, and I was like, oh, I wanted to say hi, but this is quite a big queue. So I thought, oh, I might bump into him again later, but you seem to be quite a popular man. So I thought, do you know what? I'll find him again on LinkedIn, and I'll just say thank you to you for your talks. I thought it was really good. And then, then we went from there. So the joys of LinkedIn.
What's really funny, I have people come up to me who introduce themselves, but I've known them for years through social media. Could be 5, 6, 7 years. And as soon as I bump into them, we just start talking like we've known each other for ages. And then sometimes you have to stop and think, actually, this is the first time we have actually met in person. And then you actually have a laugh about it. That's what I like about social media, how you can have people in your world and actually become good friends with them without physically meeting them.
Absolutely. I think with social media, I think it does get a lot of hate. I think obviously there is dark sides to social media, and there's things that I don't agree with there is, but we won't go down there. We'll stay positive. But I do think social media in the world of work and the world of your passions, your career, for me personally, I think it's brilliant. So I wouldn't have probably been able to connect with you. We wouldn't be doing this now if we both weren't on LinkedIn and I hadn't looked at you and commented and things like that. We wouldn't have had this conversation right now. So I think it is really important. And I think some of the things that I'm a big believer in word of mouth as your best thing for your client. But some of my services, you can't spread by word of mouth because of what they are. So I do think social media is a really good thing. I'm on board with it.
I know some people are very paranoid and they're very protective of their life outside of their professional life. And like I always say to people, and I probably say it in every second podcast, if a patient really wants to stalk you, they'll just follow you home from work.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Really, they'll just wait in the bush out the front of your clinic. They'll have the lights off in the car park, and as you drive off, we've all seen the movies. Yeah, where you see the person ducked down in the seat. But it's one of those things. And I've always looked at that, with myself, and I'm in Cairns, which is a small area. There's one road that comes into Cairns, and there's one road out, even though I think the whole population is 150,000, but it's still relatively small. And I never really thought I was that important to be worried that anyone was going to stalk me. So I never worried about it.
No, okay, fair enough. I mean, I think tonight now I'll be a bit scared. I think I'm in a horror movie now we've talked about it.
No.
I'll be running to my car.
No, I like to think that 99.9% of your patients that ever come into a clinic are usually nice people and are not there to harm you.
My client's lovely.
Yeah, you get the odd nutcase, but I had a patient once.
We love them.
I think I've mentioned on the podcast before, and he came in and he said, I have sore heels. I went, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what we do. That's very common. He goes, and I think I know what caused it. And I went, oh, this will be interesting. I'm always, has he read a magazine or something? And he was an interesting looking fella, had long hair. And I said, what do you think it is? He said, well, at night, the devil comes into my room, transforms my room into a dungeon, shackles me to the wall, and beats the bottom of my feet with a club.
Really?
And I went, that'll do it. I said, you might be onto something here. And I'm going off the conversation. And then I said, and he said, yeah, I have this little chakra or something, this little demon that sits on his shoulder. He said, you can probably see him. I went, oh, does he move around a lot? Yeah. I said, I think he just ducked behind your hair. That's why I mentioned he had long hair.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is the only time I've ever had a patient in the room that frightened me. It's the only time. There was something about him just freaked me out a little bit. So anyway, he leaves, walks out of the clinic. I said to the girls, never book him back in again with me. Or if you do not make it the last patient of the day and do not leave me here by myself. I said, I've never been terrified before. This guy actually scared me.
Yeah.
3 days later, he rang the clinic. Oh, so my advice, of course, I had to give him advice. Checked everything out. I said, here's my advice. When you go to bed at night, wear shoes. He said, serious? I said, just wear shoes to bed. Anyway, he rings up 3 days later to let the girls know that his heel pain was so much better wearing shoes to bed at night, because when the devil was clubbing him, he wasn't feeling it as bad. How good's that?
I mean,
I beat the devil.
I mean, it's slightly out of the box, but we'll go. Well done, it's a happy patient, I guess.
Yeah. So, like I said, majority of patients I think are really good. You do get the odd person that is a little bit out there. So let's get back onto you. You're into sports therapy.
Sports therapist, yeah.
Yeah, sports therapist, scar practitioner, stretching enthusiast. Yeah. But before we just touch on that part, what got you at the foot and ankle show in the first place?
Part of the sports therapy, I do insoles. So I fit insoles. Obviously, you get a lot of foot and ankle injuries as well. I mean, not as quite advanced as your devil guy, but I do get some foot and ankle issues. So I've been fitting insoles for absolutely a year. And I use Formthotics, who tend to sponsor the foot and ankle show. So they're normally like, oh, Olivia, you ought to come to this. We've got this under. And that's how I learned about the foot and ankle show in the first place. And I did go last year as well. And I enjoyed it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to come again this year. I find like I don't ever seem to go to a show or a trade show or a talk where I don't learn at least something. So I do
always.
like to go, because you always come back with something, even if it's completely random, like doing a podcast. So yeah, so that's how I ended up at the foot and ankle show, through insoles and Thotics.
Yeah, I like what you said to me before we pressed record, when you said you looked at the program and then you scan the program first and you really work out your plan of attack on what you're going to do and whatever talks. And that's how my happiness and achievement talk stood out. So you saw that.
Yeah.
And I did exactly the same thing. I went through everything and I circled, because I had different people that have been on this podcast who were talking. So I wanted to make sure I saw their talks. And I think one of my talks clashed with somebody else's. So I couldn't do mine and watch theirs at the same time. Yeah. But it's a fantastic 2 days.
Yeah, it's very good. I mean, I have a little bit of a strategic plan of how I do these now, because when they do talks and trade shows at the same time, you've only got a limited amount of time. Yeah. So I do what I said before we started recording, which is obviously find the most exciting thing that stands out to you. Then I do have a little bit of logic in my plan. So I will look at, for example, I wanted to go and see a talk on plantar fasciitis. So I did go and see that purposely for educational purposes. And then obviously you've got to get around the whole show. So I like to see all the new things. And if there's something I've not seen before, a new insole or a new product. So you're on a bit of a time scale, really. You've got to try and put it in the little gaps.
I know there's so much to fit in 2 days. So how's your relationship with podiatrists? Like you said that you do inner soles. Do you work with many podiatrists in that aspect?
What I tried to do is, so I can't remember if I said this during our recording or not, but I have my own private clinic, and then I work in different areas, like mobile as well. So I go to other people's clinics, and sometimes people get me to do a clinic at their place that's not necessarily, for example, one of them I do, it's like an equestrian one. So it's an equestrian centre, but I go and do all of the different riders' injuries and things like that. So it's kind of clinic, but it's not. So what I try and do is I try and network with different people in the different areas, because obviously I'm not a podiatrist, but I'm also not an osteopath. I'm also not a chiropractor. So you have to make connections so that when you're in different areas, if someone comes in and I say, do you know what, I can help with this part of your problem, but I actually think you'd be better suited to said therapist because they specialise in this. And then you can all work together and make sure the patient's getting the right treatment and they're going to the right area. So I try my best to try and incorporate as many different networking things as I can, if you like.
Yeah, and that was why I wanted to get you on, because when we were messaging each other on LinkedIn, some of the things you were telling me about your stretching classes and other things that you do, I went, the idea of this podcast, yes, I have a lot of podiatrists on, majority of the guests are podiatrists, but I like to get people who aren't, just to expose podiatrists to, there's other professions out there that we should be working with. Don't look at them as competition. We should try and connect with them. And yes, there might be a particular condition that you would treat and I would treat.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we're competitors. It just means we are treating the same thing.
No, and I think sometimes with patients, it's the relationship. So for example, I had a client once that rang me up and said, my daughter has got this injury, it's lower back, it's hip area. And she was a really young girl and she was happy to come to me because I look like a young girl too. So she was really chilled out, if that makes sense. So sometimes it's not actually to do with skill. It might be if they feel comfortable. Young girl saw young girl, felt comfortable, and then luckily I obviously could help her with the injury, what it was. But sometimes it's things like that. So it might be that you might get somebody that you think actually they've got more in common with you, you're more experienced, blah, blah, blah. So they're going to pick you. Whereas someone else might think, okay, Olivia's doing this, this, and this. She also does that. So we're going to pick her, even though we do the same job. So I do think it's important to not, really against this whole competitive nature we've got in the industry. I think it's really sour.
Are you talking sport exercise industry?
I think you see it in a lot of professions, really. I mean, if we're just talking sports therapy, say, for example, you've got 5 sports therapists in a radius of 10 miles.
Yeah.
You know, I think we should all be friends and say, oh, actually, you specialise in that, you're better at that. And then we can all send them to the right bits. Or if I think, well, actually, I'm fully booked this week, I can't get you in, but I know person A has had a cancellation tomorrow, get you in straight away. You can all help each other. It does work better. What is that quote that I'm thinking of? Oh, that was it. Your flame doesn't burn brighter by blowing other people's out. I really like that. I like it. And I love that because it's true. You're better off working all together as a big group, and actually you end up with better opportunities, I think, that way.
Well, I'll look at it this way. If you were in the town where I was working, yes, okay, we both might treat, say, heel pain. You're going to treat it slightly different to how I will treat it. But if I maintain a good relationship with you, the bottom line is we should be fixing the patient. So if you fix the patient, that's great. If that patient ends up with an ingrown toenail and you and I have a good relationship, where are you going to send them? Are you going to send them to the podiatrist who's shooting bullets?
Absolutely.
Or the podiatrist that just says, we can still be friendly. Okay, so occasionally we treat the same patient.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, I just think there's that many people with aches and pains and injuries and issues going on. There is enough people to go around us all. I sometimes think I can't get everybody done in a week. So we need more people to help everybody. We can't just be, and if we're poorly or unwell, it's nice to be able to have someone. I don't want to think about my patients if I'm unwell for a week. So they've got to now wait and I'm fully booked the week after they've got a week and wait another week. I want them to be able to go and get fixed. And if it means that they want to use me afterwards, that's fine. And if they prefer the other person, that's also fine. I think, I think the competitive aspect, I don't think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's changing. I mentioned on last week's podcast that I think this real competitive side of things is changing. Like I'm old and crusty, but some of the podiatrists that are older and crustier than me, I think we're really competitive with each other. This was my territory. And if you came, and I remember setting up my first clinic as a young buck coming in, and the podiatrists that were already in town, if they could have hung me, they would have. It was just, I was not wanted in their territory.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now, this last 10 years, I can see all the younger podiatrists coming through. I think they're all working together a little bit more, and they all realize we have different interests. So if we can actually work together, if you like this, I can send that to you, and I prefer this. And I can see in another 10 or 15 years that changing as well, and also working better with other professions.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the way forward. I think if we all work together, everybody gets treated nicely, everybody gets fixed and their injuries sorted out. And also, it's not like if you miss things. So if something new comes up, I was talking to somebody last week. So there's been a few new products that are coming up, different tapes and things like that. And I know somebody they're about an hour away from me. And I know they're interested in it. And I messaged and said, oh, have you seen this? I'm trialing it. And now they're trying it. I think that's good because now we're all getting the better products together. So we're giving a better service to the patient. I think sometimes we need to think the patient's the most important thing here, because we're trying to get the best treatment possible rather than fighting with each other over who gets said patient. It's about what the treatment is in the first place, I think.
Definitely agree.
That's just my personal opinion.
I know.
I was like, before I came on here, I was like, I must make sure I say personal opinion to everything because I don't want to start throwing my opinions out there.
Oh, no. Well, what they say. Opinions are like bumholes. Everyone's got one.
Yeah.
And it's true. I find it funny sometimes when people will write a review about something, and it might be a negative review. And some people get really upset. Oh, someone gave me this 1-star review, or they gave me a 2-star review. You're going, but it's just their opinion. And you may have, on that particular day, may not have provided the best service. I was looking at some friends in Cairns opened up a new bar called the Hound Bar. They've got about 5 or 6 bars in this area. And I was reading through, I haven't been there, so I was reading through the reviews, and they had these 2 1-star reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And both reviews, as I'm reading them, I could see them being legit reviews, that they weren't trying to be nasty. What they wrote, I could see, yeah, I can see how that may have actually happened. But
Yeah.
what's good is the owner, Darren, responded to both of those reviews, responded in a really positive manner.
Yeah.
And he also offered them, hey, come back in and I'll give you a round of drinks for you and your friends.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
you can't ask for any more than that.
Yeah, you can't fix something if you don't know the problem, though, can you? So I think that's the most important thing. And if someone says to me, can I have an extra cushion under my knees when you do this type of treatment? Or this is aching me, can I have this cushion under here? If I think that's negative, then I'm never going to get anywhere. But if I think then every single person that comes in that position, I say, would you like a cushion here? I've advanced all my practice now forever. So I think it's constructive criticism. I mean, obviously not all negative comments are constructive, but
oh no, I've had, I always refer to my book, and I've had majority 5-star reviews on my book because it deserves 5 stars, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of ones there where they're 3-star reviews, and I'm like, oh, but when I read what they write there, I get why they thought it was a 3-star, because they were like, say, for example, I wrote the book and I'm an Australian podiatrist. So most the way that I wrote it was thinking Australia and probably more relatable to the UK. But a podiatrist in America reading that would go, oh, you didn't mention anything about insurance companies. And because we don't have to deal with all that rubbish. So I didn't put it in there. So getting a 3-star review from them, I go, okay, I get that. That actually makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Your audience and the judgments. I have another quote for this. What's that other one? Something like, if you judge a fish's ability to climb a tree, they're not going to get a good opinion of it, are they? I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something about a fish climbing a tree. You know what I'm on about? But it makes sense. If the monkey and a fish are climbing the tree, obviously the monkey's going to do good, but the fish isn't. But it doesn't mean the fish isn't good. Fish is still an amazing swimmer, but it's just being judged in the wrong area. So if they're looking at yours and they're only looking for insurance, your book might not work for them, but everything else is brilliant. It's just not exactly what they were fixated on. So
I think it's an Albert Einstein quote, isn't it?
It is. I can't think of I wasn't supposed to do so many quotes on here this morning or this afternoon for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's an Albert Einstein quote, or it's something related to him for some reason. Somebody listening to this
will comment on this like, it's this. How can you not remember?
I know people are going, God, you did 2 years together, you can't even come up with it. But that's okay.
In my defense, it's early in the morning where I am. In my defense,
and in my defense, it's the end of the day, and my brain is spent. So I thought now would be a perfect time to just dive in and remind everybody that if you're looking or considering a podiatry business coach, before you reach out to some of the larger coaching companies, please go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, and read through the coaching section. You'll see I've got a model there called the Thriving Podiatry Business Model. And after you read through everything, there's also a link to my online calendar. From there, we can organize a 30-minute Zoom call. We'll have a bit of a talk. I'll explain the Thriving Podiatry Business Model in a bit more detail. And you may find just after that call, that is all you need just to give yourself a little bit of guidance. But if you want to take it further, I can give you more information. So please go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Okay, let's get back to the interview. So I want to talk a little bit about you for a sec. Is your progression of becoming a sports therapist? What was the training? How did you get through that in the first place?
So basically, went to school normally. I went to, we call it sixth form in the UK. So the last couple of years of school, hated it, got myself stressed out, left, went to college. And then after that, went to do my degree. At college, I basically just went and did something fun, and it was sport and exercise science.
Okay.
Always loved sport, things like that. It was basically just go and have fun, Olivia, because you don't know what you want to do and you're stressing yourself out. So I went there, and one of the modules was injury rehab, so all different injuries, and another one was anatomy and physiology, and I absolutely loved biology. I was like, oh my God, I love injuries. I can't believe this is even a job. I didn't know. where I went to school, it was more academic based, so they was looking at English and mathematics rather than sports therapy wasn't really on the list of potential jobs you could do. So anyway, so really loved that, transferred, did my degree in sports therapy and injury rehab. Then I other people for a little while. I did some sporting event, and then I thought, I'm going to have a give it. I think it was 21, I was like, right, I'm going to go for it. Went self-employed, went mobile for a little while, and then I rented a little room where I lived. It was like about 10 minutes from where I lived, a little room in somebody else's clinic. Did that for a couple of years, and then it seemed to be going quite well. Word of mouth was spreading nicely. People seemed to be really happy with what I was doing. I was doing more courses and things, progressing myself as well. And then I thought I'm going to go for it. And then it's actually a week tomorrow. I opened my own clinic, so that was really exciting. So that was March the 8th, 2020. And then, yeah, here we are. And then since then, I've obviously done more things. Like I said, I've done my scar therapy now, so I do a lot of that. The stretching thing, though, that was totally random as well. That was when the whole coronavirus pandemic went on. In the UK, we wasn't allowed, I don't know what everywhere else, but UK, we wasn't allowed to obviously touch people for a while and do things. And so obviously that's taken a lot of my business away. So I did try to do sort of virtual rehab with people, but I was a little bit bored, if I'm honest. So doing a bit of virtual, there's a lot of time in the day to kill. We can't go anywhere, can't do anything. So I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go online and I'm going to keep people motivated. I'm going to put quotes and things on. I'm going to put stretching videos on. I'm going to do a stretch of the week. So people are a bit more motivated. They liked it. So then I did two stretching classes and then people still loved it. So that kind of is a bit of a side business that's ended up being quite a big part of my life because people still enjoy it. So I'm not going to take it away.
So you kept doing it. So you set that up during COVID and then
I mean, I did do
continued.
one class a week, actually. I did do one stretch class a week before COVID, but I didn't, it was a 45-minute class a week. It wasn't a big thing, but I loved stretching and things like that. I had a dancing background, so it was a bit of rehab. I turned it into a bit of a rehab / stretch class.
Yeah.
But yeah, COVID is what made that a big thing because I just started stretching on the internet and people liked it.
I think there's a lot of, like, other than all the death that went on during COVID times and the businesses that did crash and fail and the financial hardship people went through and the mental problems and depression, I mean, other than all the negatives, there were a lot of positives that came out of it as well, where people had to think differently. They couldn't just stick with what the norm was. They had to think outside the box. And I did, because I used to do I would run workshops live, marketing workshops. And then when COVID hit, all of a sudden that all stopped. And I went, and I was still doing coaching clients online. And then somebody just said to me, what if you did more your training, your workshops online? So that's how I created this thing called initially it was a 12-week podiatry business reboot. And it was just 12 sessions of the most intense things that I think you need in your podiatry business to get it growing.
Yeah, good idea.
And that went nuts. The first couple of sessions I did just went nuts. And I ended up over that 3-year period doing about 8 groups online with it. And then last year I did 2 live ones where we took it to a 2-day event instead of a 12-week event. And then now I've tried to switch it back again to see, because I had people from the UK approach me and say, can you do it online again? Or are you going to come back to the UK and do it live for 2 days? But that all came about because of COVID.
Yeah, I think so for me, I'm quite big on like mindset, and I think you can look at it in 2 ways. So obviously the way I could have looked at it was, okay, I can't work now. I've just opened my brand new clinic and about 2 weeks later, I'm now closed. That's not great. It's a bigger clinic. I've got more financial burden now, and now I'm closed. I've just progressed myself. I've spent lots of money on new courses, and now I'm closed. So you could have been quite negative, but I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to how can I have fun, make an income and use my time to my best advantage? So obviously doing the online stuff, it's not as good of an income, but it's a substantial income to get you through. And then also it's fun. It's created a new side of my business. I made little pain workshops. I call it a stretch and strengthen pain workshop series that I've got. So I spent time creating those. And because you've got the time to then go away from it and come back, you're not thinking I'm on a time limit.
Yeah.
You can go for a walk, come back, try again. So I made a lot of things like that as well. So I feel like I use the time to my advantage.
I think the good part with your videos too would be, and I tell people this all the time, if they're not using on YouTube or shooting videos to get themselves out there and on social media, but you have a really high energy level too. And I'm sure anyone who's listening to the podcast can pick up you have a high energy level. If they're watching the video, they will see that you have an extremely high energy level. So you're
Yeah.
very well suited for videos.
I feel like what the weirdest thing is, when I first started, I absolutely hated photos. I used to be really anti photos. I didn't like videos. And if I listened to myself talk, I was like, oh gosh, that's awful. But then when I started doing a few photos, stretching photos, do like a stretch of the week. So I do like a pose, and then I'd post it, and then I'd be like, oh God, what do I look like? Is the angle right? What is that on my face? I've got one hair out of place. And it was
Yeah.
really represented. But then you get over yourself. Like, I'm over it now. I literally now I did a video on Monday. I've had this new tape that's been sent to me, and I wanted to trial it out. And I had about 10 minutes, and I was like, I haven't got time to write a long post. So I just put the camera on, said to everyone, look, I've been sent this. I need guinea pigs to trial it out. Who wants to be a guinea pig, basically? And then posted it. And I didn't even watch myself back. And I thought, you know what? That's such good personal progression, because once you've started putting yourself out there, you do, without meaning to, you get like personal confidence, if that makes sense.
Oh
And
no, it definitely
you get
does.
like, yeah, you like get over yourself, and you just start doing it. And then people are messaging that, oh, that was really cool. Yeah, I want to do it. I think, do you know what was wrong with me 5 years ago?
I think the hardest
Yeah,
part, it's just getting started. But once you
exactly.
get started and you get that momentum going, ideas for shooting videos just
Yeah.
they're easy to do. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but it'll be very close to when this episode comes out. An episode that I do on the Podiatry Marketing Podcast with Big Jim Mack, and we're talking. I put a challenge out there doing 30 videos in 30 days, and I
Okay.
did this. I did one years ago where I did 365 videos in 365 days.
No way.
It was this massive challenge that I did, and it really took me out of my comfort zone. But even just recently, a friend of mine came back from overseas, and he brought me this thing. I love Captain America, so he brought me this thing back. So when I got it, I just loved it. It came with some of my favorite mints called wintergreen as
Mhm.
well. And when I got that, I went, you know what? It is so good when you receive like an unexpected gift from somebody.
Yeah.
And he has like every time he goes overseas, he usually brings back something small. But sometimes he's brought me really cool T-shirts. But I do the same thing for him, and I've got some other friends I do the same thing with.
Mhm.
But as soon as that arrived, I went, "Yeah, good." That made me feel. I went, "I'm going to shoot a video on that." And I think
Yeah.
once you're doing videos and you're doing it on a regular basis, just things that happen in life, you start realizing, you know what, that's a video. If it
Yeah.
made me happy, and I'm all about being happy myself and making other people happy,
Absolutely.
they need to know this.
And I think as well with social media, I don't know whether you find this, because you're a bit more professional than me.
Oh, look,
but,
don't put me in that category. Don't put me in a
but
professional box.
I've seen your LinkedIn. I've seen your LinkedIn. But yeah, sometimes I don't know why. And I feel like if any of my patients listen to this, they're going to be laughing. But people seem to love watching me do random stuff. So I did a video at Christmas time, literally. So I'm obsessed with Christmas. I'm obsessed with decorating it. In my clinic, I have an 8-foot tree. That's
All
how
right.
extreme I am.
Yeah, that is
So I did a
extreme.
video. I did a video of me decorate, literally bit of hoovering, put the tree up, decorate the tree, hoover again, done. And I just thought, I sped it up a little bit. Obviously, no one wants to watch 4 hours of me doing that. But I sped it up to about 2 minutes. And do you know what? That's the most views I've ever had on a video ever. And I just thought, does anybody care what I do for a job, or do they just want to watch me put trees up?
I know, but even on my YouTube channel, I put one up towards the end of last year of us trying to catch a rattlesnake in
Yeah,
Arizona.
I'd do that.
And, and we ended up, it was my tip, bring in the professionals. When you try and catch a
Yeah,
rattlesnake, get professionals to do it. But that video, I put it up there and bang, before I knew, almost overnight, 500 views of that video.
yeah,
And I've gone, hang on, I've done some really important business ones and
yeah,
some
yeah,
serious topics, and it gets
yeah.
50 views. And then we're chasing a rattlesnake, and all of a sudden it gets 500. So I
It is,
do. Yeah, I agree. I think people, especially in
yeah,
podiatry businesses and like in your business,
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
your patients want to see a little bit behind the scenes. Yeah, what is
Yeah.
the thing they can't see?
They want to see you without a mask, I think. And I'm not saying be unprofessional, definitely don't be unprofessional, but I think sometimes they just want to see you for a real person. And
Yeah,
sometimes they really are interested in behind the scenes. People love watching me clean this clinic. Like, if I do a video of me doing a little reset, they are obsessed with it. If I do a video of me, so I did one on negative pressure. So like cupping therapy, and one of my machines that I use, my scar machine, it lifts the tissue. And I thought I spent ages on it, editing it, making sure it all works. I did a big massive paragraph all explaining, and no one cared. I got about 3 likes. I think one of them was a parent, so that doesn't even count. And then I did another video, no editing. It took me 3 seconds to do it. Literally posted it with, I don't even think I put a caption. And it was me doing this back bend stretch on the side of a boxing ring, just a funny music. Again, people love that. And I think no one's even doing that. My patients are injured. They're not going to be bending themselves like that.
Well, I did. But when I went to Oxford before I went to Liverpool, I arrived in Oxford and I went, and there was this little Italian stand there in the markets. And they were making this pasta, but they were cooking the pasta, putting this cheese wheel, swishing it around, and then putting it on your plate. So I said, can I videotape you doing that? Yeah, when you make mine, though. Yeah, so I videotaped it. 8,000 views. of me filming someone making pasta.
Yeah. Yeah, if I was to give advice for social media, it's just have fun with it and just post what you fancy at the time. Don't overthink it. The more you overthink it, the worse it gets.
I think the tip you said there, though, is like you're posting it, have some fun. Just be professional. Don't drop your pants. That's a suggestion.
No, please don't do that. Within reason.
Yeah.
And stay professional.
But I have seen some people where they have been unprofessional, but all of a sudden it's a completely different market then. You're not...
No.
Your patients or people following you or even friends following you, if they know what your personality is like, they expect you to have a little bit of fun and carry on a little bit.
Innocently, though. Yeah,
but innocently. But, geez, I would never film anything. I'm glad when I was younger there were no video cameras.
No.
People, if they had phones around when I was a kid, my bare bum would be out there a lot.
No. I don't think I'd have linked with you on LinkedIn if that was the case.
No, it's anyway. Where were we? So when you came on here, I want to ask you come on. I said, have you got some talking points? So I want to make sure we've covered those talking points. So one was about like customer care.
I'm massive on customer care. I think customer care is the most important thing, because I think what people forget is in my industry and all the industries is, so I really like the saying, treat how you wish to be treated. And I know generically that saying is used for being kind to people, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I like that as a real practical, like pragmatic way of looking at it. So literally treat someone how I'd want to be treated if I was a client or patient. So I think, first of all, they're going to be nervous if they've not been to anyone before, or, for example, they've got a scar and they're embarrassed of said scar. It's a real nerve-wracking thing to come in, get the scar out, show somebody they don't know, and then have them touch and move it around and do whatever they're going to do. So I think first things first is just let them sit and be comfortable and let them listen to them. Let them talk. Say, for example, they come in with something that you see every single day. So it's just a generic thing that you see every single week, day in, day out. And they'll start talking and you already think, oh, yeah, I know what this is, I know how to fix it. It's not fair on them because that's a real big deal to them. So you have to, I think, for me, first job is just listen, let them talk, because we're all different. So even though you think it's the same thing, they actually might have something that's a slight quirk. So one symptom that's slightly different from the other 1,000 people that you've seen with the same thing. So I think listening to them, making them comfortable as well. For my job, is slightly different. So you're getting different body parts that they might need to see. So making sure they're all covered up, making sure there's a bathroom available. Do they need a drink? Are they okay? Checking in with them throughout the treatment and things like that. So I am quite big on customer care. I think that's the most important thing. But customer care is in looking after them aside from the treatment, not just the treatment itself. Yeah.
I know. I think it's a really good point. Even in my podiatry clinic, we would, your whole reception area, the chairs that people go to sit in, are they comfortable? Yeah. Are they appropriate for the age of the people that you're attracting? We had a refrigerator in our reception area, the glass doors, that was just full of bottles of water.
Yeah.
That had our business name and everything on there. And because we're in the tropics, we're hot. It's hot 11 months of the year. We'd say to patients when they arrive, hey, especially during summer, grab yourself a bottle of water, making sure that they weren't dehydrated when they turned up. Yeah. And when they arrived, we tell them where the bathrooms were if they needed to go before they went in for the consultation. So I think it's all those little things also makes the patient feel comfortable in your particular business.
I think as well, it shows them that you're thinking outside the box. So I'm trying to think of an example. So ladies with really long hair, or like your devil guy, gentlemen with long hair, should be inclusive. That was my bad. So I have a little drawer with random things in. So if they forget a hair bubble, but I need the neck to work with, here you go. I've got loads of new hair bubbles here. Take one. Make yourself more comfortable instead of me putting oil all in your hair, for example. Or like you say, having water. Or I do have fruits, but to be honest, they don't go down so well here. I think they just want something else. But I have fruits and things that people, if they feel afterwards or feel a little bit lightheaded, been through quite a big treatment, they can just sit and chill out before they go home. I think these things, and time as well. I do feel like one thing I would say is I feel like a lot of people make their appointment times too short.
Oh, yeah.
So they're rushing people out of the door and not giving them the opportunity to say, we've got 5 minutes left now. Do you have any questions on everything what we've been through? So you can make sure when you go home, you know exactly what you're doing. And is there anything that you're unsure of? I think that's really important. Being rushed out the door. I wouldn't like to be rushed out the door. So I think treat people as you wish to be treated. I think,
but a really good example of that too. Did you see Jonathan Small's talk when he was dressed up as the White Rabbit?
No, I went past that. I'd just been, where had I just been? I'd been to another talk and I come past and you just looking and he had it like halfway down his body and I was like, what is going on in there?
It was a brilliant talk. It was a really good talk. So many people spoke about it. But because he had so much content there and he only had a certain amount of time, what you're talking about then is a perfect example when towards the end, he still had so much he needed to get through that he had to rush towards the end, and you could, and he knew himself, and you could pick that he was rushing because you could see the person waving him, going, "Yeah, time's up."
Yeah.
But I think that can actually happen in a consultation where you're then rushing the consultation because you might be running a little bit late. The patients can feel you're rushing.
Absolutely.
You cannot hide it when you're rushing, and it's like Jonathan, absolutely brilliant talk, and even the content he gave at the end, right up until the rush, was brilliant, but you could feel it being pushed towards the last part of it. So I think that's a really important point for anyone listening is just remember, leave adequate time, whether it's in between patients or a gap every now and then so you can catch up. Because if you're rushing that patient, they're going to feel like they weren't listened to.
Absolutely. So what I do is I put 15 minutes between every single patient, regardless of whether I know that I'm going to do something really small for a patient that I've seen 100 times, or if it's a brand new patient, I always put 15 minutes between every single person so that I know that if I then run over, the next person is going to arrive and they're relaxed. They're not feeling like, oh, Olivia's running late, got an appointment after Olivia, But also, if I do run late, I'm not under pressure because I know that I can finish that treatment properly. That person can leave stress-free and the new person's going to come in and I'm still going to be on time. So I think
how long is each consultation?
It depends. If I'm doing a consultation, I'll normally have a good 30 minutes for a brand new client just for the consultation. Some of my treatments, the average time is between an hour, 45 minutes and an hour. But say they're just coming in for, say someone's playing a sport and they just want their ankle strapping up before they go because they're not going to listen and they're going to play the sport anyway. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'll strap it up. And I'm strapping it. That only takes me probably 10 minutes. So I would probably leave a 15-minute appointment for them, but I would still leave a 15-minute spare because you've always got admin to do. For me, I've got loads of laundry, towels and things that you've got to put away. So I just think it stops the whole, because you're right, people can sense energy. And if I'm rushing around, they can sense it.
I've been in consultations with other practitioners when I remember once I got this massage, hour massage I was booked in for. And when it finished, I'm thinking, did I have a shirt on that says, I'm really stupid? Because I saw the clock on the wall when I went in and I saw the clock when we ended. Yeah. And I went, you're only with me for 40 minutes. You started 10 minutes late and then you've finished a little bit earlier than what you should have because I know you're trying to catch up to get the next one in. And I'm thinking, but normally I pay for an hour. And I never went back.
Yeah.
I left there. I paid the bill because I'm not going to argue. I paid the bill and she said, would you like to make another appointment? I said, I've just got to check my schedule. Everyone would have heard that before. And I didn't have to check my schedule. I had already made the decision. I'm never coming back here because you rushed my 60-minute massage into 40 or 45 minutes. And
Yeah.
Now, if you had said to me, oh, instead of paying what I was normally paying, you only have to pay this because I rushed you through, I would have gone, at least you know I'm not stupid then.
Yeah, I think it's how you. So for me, if I was doing a sports massage, so I write mine as a certain time. So say for example, I would class it as a 50-minute sports massage. So if you
Yeah.
read my price and service list, it's a 50-minute sports massage. And then so I know I've got my 15 minutes before and after. So if they arrive a little bit earlier and they arrive a bit late, but I know I've still got 10 minutes anyway in the appointment time. So there's time for them to get in, get dressed, blah, blah, blah. So I think if you say 1 hour, then you need to have really an hour 10 for the appointment.
Well,
And you
actually,
need
I better rephrase
time.
it. It was a 50-minute massage, but she took me in 10 minutes
Okay.
late and then still finished
Okay.
10
It's
minutes
still,
before the hour.
still
So,
yeah.
but yeah, So rephrase that. It was a 50-minute massage. I went in 10 minutes late and then it only went for 40 minutes because she finished at 10 minutes too. And I'm going, yeah, no, I've been ripped off.
Yeah.
So,
The thing is,
and
well, if
it just didn't feel
yeah.
good.
And the thing is, if you've got the gaps either side and you are running late for whatever reason, it does happen, then at least then you can, for you, for example, if you was here having the sports massage, I could then run over again because I know I've got that 15 minutes gaps and I'm
Yeah.
still caught up because I've got that spare time. You're leaving, you've had your appointment. I can apologise for making you run late because we've had to run over. And there we go, sorted.
So the other thing is just want to touch on a couple of other things before we finish up because I'm just looking at the time. Networking, I think we
Oh,
covered.
that's gone quick.
I told you, I said to you,
That's
when
gone
we get
quick.
started, I said, by the time we get going, and you did mention you talk a lot, which was fine. And I said, well, that's good. I said, because by the time I said, this will go really quick, you'll look at the clock and also go, holy crap, we've been talking for that long. And I don't mind a chat either. So put the two of us together and it was always going to be a lot of talking. But one other thing you had here just about positivity and life lessons. What did you mean by that?
I think so. I think sometimes I think we can get whisked away with things, and I think we forget to look at what we're learning in the process. For example, something I've been learning for myself recently, I can't remember if I said before we started recording or after, but I'm quite young anyway, so I'm 27. And so there's a lot of things, obviously, that you're still learning, I guess, in your 20s.
Yeah.
That even though I've run my business for years and I've been in the industry sort of 9 years, there's still things that I have to learn personally. And one of them is at the minute, sometimes, Olivia, you have to just go with the flow. You can't plan every single thing. And sometimes it's actually better when the plans go wrong because then you find your path a little bit better. So that's something I'm learning at the minute. But I think sometimes you just have to see what is the situation, why has it gone wrong? Write down what's gone wrong, why it's gone wrong, and then think, am I supposed to learn something here? Or is this just I need to get to work earlier or I need to leave a gap between customers? Or is it actually something that as a personality thing or a personal development thing that I then need to learn to move forward? I think people develop their business so much, but they forget to develop themselves. So for me, I'm really big on what am I doing for what is my personality restricting me here? Because sometimes it's a good thing. So obviously being able to talk to people, I talk too much, but I can talk to people. It's good for patients. Obviously, then they feel more comfortable. We can talk, whatever. But then also in some situations, it's like, Olivia, you've got to stay on track, stay on the point. But yeah, I think I like to do personal development all the time because I think that implemented into then business skills as well and building that up. I think putting the two together, that's how it works, but especially when you're a sole trader or you're self-employed because you are the business, if that makes sense. It doesn't really matter if I didn't have my own clinic. If I set up in a shed somewhere, it's still me. And then if I moved to the clinic and then if I moved somewhere else, if I came and sat in your office, I'm still the business. So I think you have to develop yourself. So yeah, that's what I meant with the whole life lessons thing.
I think that's a really good distinction you made, though, about when something negative happens, is it something where it's a timing issue? Is it something that you can fix up by allowing more time or leaving home earlier? Just those sort of things. It's a systems problem that you need to fix. But then the other part, like you said, is it a personal or personality problem? Because like for me, for example, sometimes I say things before my brain really clicks into gear and my wife will just look at me, just shaking my head, going, I can't believe you said that. I'm going to hide something. No. But I think that's a great distinction between something that's a system that need to fix or something you need to work on yourself.
Just quickly, one of the biggest things I think with this sort of thing is, so when I don't know why I went back to speak to somebody from college, like years after I'd finished. And we was having this conversation, and there was a few sort of students saying, like, how did you know, Olivia, that you wanted to be in clinic and work one-to-one? Because in my job, obviously, you can work events. So if there's a running event or a triathlon, whatever, you can go and work at the side of that. You can work for a team. There's all different ways you can do it. How did you know? And I said, do you know what? I just looked at what I'm like as a person. I like one-to-one. I like talking to people one-to-one. I like making people feel better. I'm a bit more nervous in an environment where there's loads of people and there's lots of chaos going on. I don't concentrate as well as when I do one-to-one. I like having things structured and organised. So I can run a diary really well. I'm really good with appointments. I'm quite structured. So I suit being self-employed. Probably with matches and games, they're a bit last minute sometimes and things get cancelled and changed, which is not really, I don't like that. I like to know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. So I think looking at your personality, you can actually get into the right part of your industry really well. But I think sometimes people focus so much on the job instead of actually focusing on what they're like and what they enjoy, and then they get in the wrong path. So that's kind of what I meant, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does, because, well, we said this before we press record, that there's some people that they just meant to be working for somebody else. They should be, whether like in the NHS or just an employee. That is their personality, and they are best suited. And some of those people, though, unfortunately make the mistake of setting up their own business.
Yeah.
And they try and carry through an employee mentality into running a business, and it just doesn't. It's really hard trying to do that. Whereas other people, they are just meant to be working for themselves. And if they stay an employee, they just become frustrated and they become crazy. So that they need that challenge of their own business.
Absolutely.
And some people need to hop between the both. That they need to be an employee for a period of time, then go and do their own thing, and then maybe go back to being an employee. And it could do both. A hybrid, work part-time somewhere and have their own part-time business. There's no right or wrong answer, but I think you're right. It's what suits your personality.
Yeah.
So, Olivia, if people want to reach out to you, you told me on Facebook they can find you as Olivia Brown sports therapist, and the other one is Stretching with Olivia.
Yeah, so I'm Olivia Brown sports therapist on pretty much everything: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. That's my main business page. That's the serious things.
Yeah.
That's me treating people and making people feel better. And then I have my Stretching with Olivia page, which was the COVID thing. That's on TikTok, Instagram. I have got a couple of YouTubes up. I have just tried to start doing some YouTube stretching videos as well. So I used to just do them like a bit like what we're doing now. So of a video call with somebody, and then we'd teach the stretch and do it that way. Whereas I've started recording a little bit now. So I have put a couple of YouTubes on. To be honest, it's just finding time. But yeah,
I'll find it all.
Olivia.
I'll find it all. I'll put all the links in.
You'll have to send me some pictures of you doing some stretching, see how you get on.
No, actually, I'm pretty flexible. I'm not too bad. And then on LinkedIn, it's Olivia Brown, nice and easy to find.
Oh yeah, I'm just my name on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay, Olivia. So I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Sharing your enthusiasm and positivity across the world. So this has been absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.